How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of The Paradigm Shift. Today, we talk about the dynamics between self confidence and self doubt, as well as how they are mainly a result of the perception of your own experiences. So, let's get started by understanding the driving factors behind the way you feel in different environments in day to day life.
Today's quote reads, "The silence in the morning holds lots of expectations and is more hopeful than the silence at night." That's just a little bit more motivation for people to start waking up 15 minutes earlier, as we talked about last episode. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. Again, great conversation. But today, I want to start with self doubt. It's something that is external. You aren't born with self doubt. You're not brought into this world with self doubt. You're brought into this world pure, happy. Your parents are elated, ecstatic that you're here. Self doubt gets brought on with time when you start associating things with external forces, such as someone says something bad, you start repeating it in your head, and eventually it speaks itself into existence. The way I like to think about it, it's like a table. When you're born and when you're younger, you're just a table with no legs. But as time goes on and you start hearing these negative things, and you tell your mind this and you speak them into existence, you slowly start hammering away. You start hammering the legs into the table. And before you know it, you're going to have one leg, two legs, three legs, four legs of self doubt. So, how do you overcome this? The great thing is, self doubt and self confidence is all internal. You don't need any external accolades. A lot of people associate possessions with self confidence, which isn't true. The number one way to beat self doubt is to create something bigger than it. If you think you need a shadow that overshadows self doubt, and what that is self confidence. So how do you do this? It's something we've talked about a lot. Cultivate small wins. Those small wins are going to compound on top of each other, and that's what's going to essentially break those legs of self doubt. If you meet people who have a ton of confidence, it's not ego, it's confidence, and what they're good at is just keeping true to their word.
I totally agree. I think sometimes it's pretty ideal to take on a big challenge, doing what makes you fearful and what makes you want to push away and not think about it. Something personal for me that has been a very good representation of this has been learning how to code. And I don't consider myself like a good computer science type of person. And I was interested for a while. I tried it out. I couldn't really understand it, but I came back to it through data science, which is a much more mathematical approach and uses a lot of statistics. But what Sean is talking about cultivating small wins, I did that and I took on a big challenge. And I believe you can do both. So the way I think about this is I'm going to try to minor in data science, right? Obviously, if I go through all the classes and pass and whatever, then I'll get the minor. And then I will have learned a good amount of coding. But the way the small wins really work in this sense is going to class, making sure that if there's a textbook to read, I'm reading it, doing extra practice, trying to do all the homework pretty legitimately, asking for help. All of these small actions, these small movements, they can allow you to become more confident in what you do. I have definitely started in places with zero confidence. And I don't even think I'm good. I don't think I understand it that well. But the more I practice, the more I start to learn. And then the confidence builds in itself. A lot of it is internal, especially as Sean was saying. In psychology, they very well describe this idea of your internal locus of control versus your external. And we have to do a better job altogether about ignoring the external and really listening to the internal. It's so important to understand why you resist certain things, why certain things make you hesitate. Take time to introspect, talk about it with someone, get them to ask you questions, have those hard conversations, and then think about what can you do to make the situation better. A lot of times, it's about doing the things that you don't necessarily want to do. A lot of it can be pretty much brought through deliberate practice, which essentially entails putting your head down and dedicating time to going through the work. A lot of times, it's not the fun work that allows you to learn things, it's the repetition. And over time, it becomes easier. And then you start to build confidence, and that just turns into a positive feedback loop. And that will boost you from a place of self doubt to a place of self confidence.
Again, I want to reiterate, you got to build something bigger than self-doubt. A common theme with self-doubt is you'll hear someone say something about you, and then you start telling that to yourself internally. The truth is, they're wrong. Whatever they said, you don't have to believe. But for some reason, society has trained us to just repeat these negative things that we hear and to cling on to external things. And that's when self-doubt ensues. And again, we want to build something bigger than that. We want to build confidence. And what Michael was saying kind of made me have the thought that this is all very personalized for each given person. Nobody can teach you how to be confident. That's a journey that you have to go about by yourself. What we are here to advocate for is to have some sort of rules, routines, and rituals that you follow a philosophy, because essentially that's having that cheat sheet we always talk about. That's going to help you on your path to success. It all starts with your internal self. Let go of the external and just focus on you. It starts with your internal dialect and what you tell yourself. If you're going to listen to what social media has to say, what other people have to say about you, that's the life you're going to live. But if you can start to take control of your own actions and thoughts, that's how you start to build self-confidence. It can be something as small as laying your clothes out the night before. So that's already a win you have in the morning. You get up and you get changed and you start to get after it.
That's a great point. I think a lot of times we put a crazy, stupid amount of value on what people have to say. And a pretty good piece of advice, I wouldn't say necessarily applies to every single situation, because many people can give you advice even if they don't have expertise in the field. But if someone doesn't have something that you want, a quality that you admire, something that you're trying to gain, their advice isn't that useful to you. Take it with a grain of salt, if anything, and then if not, then ignore it. Because a lot of times people speak from places of ignorance. I would say this happens a majority of the time. And it's very important to take time, not respond, not get emotional or attached to what they're saying. Don't take what they say, especially when it's negative, and make it a characteristic about you, because that is when you make it true, or you start to trick your mind into thinking it's true. If you observe what they say or what happened in a vacuum and dissect it, you'll start to see where there's value in what they say and when there isn't. A lot of times we have emotions and opinions that are essentially in our subconscious that instantly start a fight when certain words are mentioned or phrases are told to us, right? It's very important to think about these things and start to understand, why do you feel a certain way when certain people say things? And then start to go back to the advice that Sean started to give. Understand where the self doubt originates from and do something about it. The way you do it is by pretty much taking on a challenge and doing something bigger that will erase the self doubt and make you confident. Because the best way is to flip the page to the other side. And then with that, you'll just have a much better chance moving through life and doing what you need to do with confidence.
My foolproof plan for self-confidence and self-doubt. We've mentioned, and now you know, you have to build something bigger than self-doubt. And the overarching reason for that is because your life will only get as big as your biggest thought. So if you start to set limitations on yourself, you're going to live an average life. If you listen to the words of other people, you're going to live a life where you're not driving, and that is scary. So what you need to do is internally have huge aspirations, set the bar really high, because you want to go and live a really successful and happy life. And then you take small steps to get there. That's the internal game you have to play. You don't want to think about your goal. You want to set it and then map out a plan, create that cheat sheet. So every day you're taking one small step. And in doing this, you're going to focus so much on yourself. You're going to focus on your internal identity. You're going to naturally let go of external things. And all those legs of the table that were there before, they're just going to shatter and fall off. And before you know it, you're going to be on the path to success. So to reiterate, make sure you're doing one thing every single day. I recommend people follow the quote, one day better than yesterday. This is something Michael and I do. We talk about how we are better 1% each day. It's a form of accountability. Find someone you're close with or just journal and do that yourself. And if you do that constantly, you're going to compound wins on top of each other. And ironically, you're also compounding your own identity. That is how you gain confidence, by overshadowing self-doubt.
Going back to the idea of ignoring people's opinions and what they say, it's very important to maybe split the category into two, right? Think about who's talking to you and think about what are their intentions behind what they're saying. If they genuinely have positive intentions and want the best for you, and you can maybe have a conversation and genuinely learn that to be the truth, then that's one thing. But a lot of times, people are just going to tell you things so that you become the person that best suits them. And that is a very important distinction to make. And I believe we mentioned something almost verbatim on another episode, but it's very true. A lot of times, and sometimes it's out of good faith in a way, especially with parents, but sometimes people have an archetype that they want you to fulfill. But everyone's unique. Everyone has their own ambitions and their own goals and their own insecurities, and everything else is unique and personalized. We aren't meant to be someone else's character in a video game that they're playing and using us. That's not how it works. Everyone's playing their own game. Don't let someone drive your life, as Sean was saying. Don't let someone play the game of life using you. That's not the way to go. So it's very important to make that distinction between if someone wants the best for you or if they want the best for themselves. And that can really be life changing. A lot of times there are going to be people in your life that start to talk to you in certain ways, and you'll start to pick up on what it is that they gain from telling you certain things or from asking you certain things. Obviously, we want to have symbiotic relationships, so make sure that your relationships are a two-way street and your conversations are also a two-way street, because at the end of the day, it can be pretty harmful for things only to go one way. And as long as you are being careful and really listening to what people have to say and being introspective to some extent, you're going to really figure this out.
Last piece of advice is you want to focus internally on yourself. Yes, that's correct. But it's easier to walk a path when you have a couple guys around you. So how do you do this? One great way is faith. If you're someone who can reconnect with your faith, continue to grow your faith, and realize that God created you in the image of likeness, He created you to do great things, life will become that much easier, and cultivating those wins are going to become that much easier. Same thing, that's why we advocate to introspect and realize that the 5 people that you spend the most time around, you're going to become an average of them. So be really attentive with who you're spending your time with. If you choose the right people, the path to success becomes so much easier because you're walking that path together. That's why I'm grateful for Michael and a few other people, because the game of life becomes so much easier. It's like playing a game multiplayer. It's a lot easier to do that than to try and tackle something single-handedly. So yes, you do want to focus on yourself internally, but make sure you have those 1 or 2 other puzzle pieces that can just help you along the way. And like Michael said, relationships and things are a two-way street. So make sure that you are returning whatever favor they're giving you and you're just cultivating that relationship. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Paradigm Shift. We hope you've gained a better understanding of today's topic, as well as used some of our stories and advice to launch you into a healthier lifestyle. Be sure to tune into next episode, where we will continue to discuss other topics relating to health, lifestyle, and last but not least, self-improvement. Stay mindful.